Does this mean we're live?
We're live.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Do. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Nice to see you. Well, it's kind of a misnomer. I'm kind of lying because I can't see anybody. But it's nice that you're here if you are joining us at any point in time, because this lives pretty much everywhere. YouTube, Dean Blundell Show. YouTube, Dean Blundell Show. Said it twice, so you got it. All you got to do is subscribe. That'd be great. You can go to Twitch, Dean Blundell TV, and wherever you get your fine podcasts as well. My name is Dean. It's Dean Blundell on Twitter. You can find my friend and co-host Lochlin Cross at Lochlin Cross on Twitter as well, or the host of the morning show on 957 Cruise FM in Edmonton. You go to 957cruisefm.ca if you're not in the beautiful city of Edmonton and the wonderful province of Alberta.
Stream away.
It. Yeah, stream it. Your streaming numbers have to be better than they were at this point, because I say it every time you're on the show, which hasn't been a lot lately because I know you're busy and people are already asking me about your CD wall behind you, so we'll get to that. But you're moving, right? So, you know, you've been busy. You've been at it. I
missed a couple of shows in the last few weeks. Yes.
Yeah, I got an email from somebody who's like, "You and Locke already have a fight, huh?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Why hasn't Lochlin been on the show?" I go, "No, he's fucking moving." So the fact that you have 3 empty CD shelves above you is like, my way of telling everybody we haven't had a fight. That's what I'm pointing out here. Okay, you're actually moving.
Yes, we are moving, and Dean has been good enough to give me the day and find ways to fill the holes that I leave for the show over the last couple of weeks, so that, because I've been having to meet people down at the house, like we're getting a little bit of painting done. I got a guy there today that's doing a fence, like little things like that, right? Yep. We're taking our time to move. We're not actually officially moving in until I think the 24th of October, 21st, 22nd, something like that. It doesn't matter. And everything's a blur. So I put the CD wall up for sale. I started packing it, and somebody bought it last night. Now I got to really pack it. So if I'm on the podcast next week, that wall will be empty behind me.
Well, that's good. Was it hard emotionally for you to let go? Because I know we were talking about it the other day, and you're like, it's tough. Like, I've been collecting this stuff for like 25, 30 years since CDs came out. We got rid of cassettes.
Time.
You were emotionally attached to it. You were emotional about it.
I was. And I mean, it seems ridiculous to be upset about something like, it's just a possession, but it was.
Get some good dough for it, though.
Did you?
Who's the fucking idiot who bought all those CDs too? Who buys CDs in bulk?
Jamie did. He wants the collection. Yeah.
He wants all 4,000 of your CDs. Doesn't care how much.
I think there's like 2,500 there. Yeah, I did a rough math on it. Yeah, so he's picking them up on Sunday, bringing a case of beer. We're going to have a few pops. I'm going to load it in the back of his truck, and he's going to go home and go through it. If I took the time to sell it individually, because CDs are making a bit of a comeback.
Which is ridiculous, because I don't know any single human being on this planet with a CD player anymore. I don't have any. No friends have them in their cars.
Yeah,
not one.
A lot of people are. It's like it must be a nostalgia thing. It's not as popular. Vinyl has made a huge comeback.
Maybe someone's making those like rear view mirror danglers. Maybe someone's making a killing on those somewhere, right? Where it's like, get your rock and roll rear view mirror dangler, the one that everybody does the fishing wire with the CD in it, and everybody's like, "What the fuck? You look like a homeless person that just bought a car."
You know what? The sound is pretty decent, right? I mean, CD sound, CD quality is definitely what people are looking for. Anyway, I've had them for years. I've moved them countless times. The next place we're moving to, we are downsizing a bit. It's not, CDs are big on eBay. Some oldies are worth a ton of money. Honestly, man, Clay's not wrong. A friend of mine said you should sell these individually on eBay. You'll make 10, 12, 13 grand. And he sold his whole collection. And he was getting 5, 10. Sometimes he was getting 15, 20, 40, 50 bucks.
So I should make fun of you then? Is that what you're saying? Is that there's no point in making fun of you anymore because you hung on to those and now you're actually... And here, let's be honest. How many of those things did you get for free from working in the radio that you're just kind of making a profit on?
90% of them.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You got to let it go.
I'm letting it go.
Attaboy. Anyway, good to see you. Great to have you back. We know CDs are big. Thank you, everybody. This isn't about CDs today because we have guests. We've got friends that are back with us. Really excited to bring them in because I don't know if you guys have been watching. Have you been watching any of the Emergency Act stuff? Like, is the Emergency Act stuff big out in Alberta? Are you just not a CPAC guy? Not interested in watching legislative TV?
You know what? You know what I think? I think a lot of people are at where I'm at. There's just certain conversations that you can't have anymore in a room full of people. And one of them is about COVID, about mandates, about vaccines. It's just not a good idea. And that's why that's the Danielle Smith stuff is just amazing to me. Mm-hmm. She's not going to be a leader for long. She's basically babysitting a spot until we elect somebody that we want in there.
With a brain.
And or the best of the worst choices. Mm-hmm. And why would you dip your toe back into that conversation? It's just stupid. Just let it go. I think that's where most people are at with the Emergency Act hearings. It's just like everyone's trying to move on.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Uncle Terry's coming over. Nobody wants to bring this shit up. Just like stop. Like, let's not talk about it, right? Like, for the first time in 4 years, we're seeing Uncle Terry. We already know his stance. No one's changing his mind. We're not changing our mind. Why are we bringing this up? So cork it, Danielle. Like, let it go. Let's all just try to move on, right? Mm-hmm. That's where I think a lot of people are at. And that's why I think this Emergencies Act is not going to be huge news, these hearings.
Well, I think it has been to some extent. I don't know if it has been where you are. I know it's regionally, you kind of get different tastes of news,
Ottawa,
right? Whether it's national news, Ottawa, it's huge here. And a lot has to be determined, right? These hearings are there to determine why Justin Trudeau used the Emergencies Act. And to talk about that with us, someone who was there for it for its entirety, covering the whole thing from start to finish. Please welcome journalist, lawyer at Karima Rules. Ladies and gentlemen, Karima is back. And she is, she's fluffed the hair. You really fluffed it up for us today, which is nice. And she's got her
blue
signature.
Room.
Yeah, it's a very aqua room. It's a very turquoisey room. Yeah.
You should have come in doing this.
Yeah, you should pretend you're underwater. You should have wear snorkel
between
gear.
blue room and fluffing, let's start over.
Let's just move on. Is that what you're saying? Let's not talk about fluffing and blue rooms. And a counterterrorism expert we've had on this show many, many times. Parents for Peace is the name of the organization. He's an educator. He's a professor, former jihadist, and he's turned a bunch of people around, de-radicalized people, helped people. He's actually kept this country safe from, you may remember, Toronto 18. That's this guy. Please welcome back to the program, Mr. Mubin Sheikh, ladies and gentlemen. Mubin is back.
Mubin!
Hey,
I have also fluffed my hair.
Yeah. When did you start? So Locke doesn't have any hair. Do you are you the guy that shaves his head? We talk about this with the guys because we got a lot of bald people on this program for some reason. Are you the guy that shaves his head even though he has hair, or did you shave your head because you don't have hair? Which one is it?
I mean, mostly hair.
Yeah.
But I shave it because I like to keep it. I've been keeping my hair short since I was like in high school. So it's just something I've always done.
Now I've done right down to the wood.
But you have to. Because you'd look ridiculous if you didn't.
Well, no, I knock it right down to the nub, right? But I keep a little bit on. And the reason I do is because it was a natural childbirth and I have a misshapen head. And so I look a little like I'm visiting. It's not a good look. May I talk to your leader?
Mega mind.
Mubin's got a nice shaped head. He does. He has a great looking head.
He's got a round cranium. Yeah. But he's
my head got
like
squeezed.
Mubin pisses guys off that don't have hair. Like you're pretty secure in yourself. You know that you've got a weird head, all that other stuff. Take me to your leader. But Mubin, like, he's the guy that pisses people off who has hair, probably could have a nice coif, but he's just not interested, so he keeps it down to the wood. Do you get jealous?
You look good, bald
people?
You look good.
Yeah, you do. You're a good-looking guy. Yeah, you're welcome. We can say that. We have no problem saying that you're a good-looking guy with no hair. No problem. But you're always wearing hats.
Are we talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
What, you've never
What
heard a
hat?
couple of dudes call you good looking before on a podcast?
What? I got all kinds of hats. I got toque. I got my Muslim hat.
Yeah.
I got
When do you
my,
wear that? Do you wear that like? Do you have to wear the Muslim hat in a like a Muslim mosque, or do you wear it when you go inside places you're unfamiliar, or just when it rains? What's the deal
Yeah,
with that
you,
bad
you have
boy?
to wear it when you declare jihad against the raccoons that come out at night. Yeah, I usually use it just at the mosque
Yeah.
primarily. Yeah,
Do you
And what's
have to
the-
pray
Yeah,
with
what's-
the hat on?
you don't have to, but it's nice to. It's
What's
nice
the
if
thing with it? Why? How come you have to put it on? It's the same thing with Jewish mosques, right? You got to put something
Jewish
on your head or
mosques, yeah,
something.
like that.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know that deal.
synagogue. It's called a synagogue. Okay,
Okay,
Dean.
whatever.
God. Yeah, no, the kippah that they use is basically just
Batting
a
1,000 today, Dean.
It's a smaller version of the. It's a smaller version of the Muslim skull cap.
Okay.
You can call
And
it
then
that.
there's do you do the hand washing ritual and everything? You got to wash your
Yeah, it's
right
called,
hand first.
No, it's ablution. You do a ritual ablution.
Yeah.
4 parts. Wash your face, wash your arms to your elbows, pass a wet hand over the skull, and your feet to your ankles.
Okay. And so that's a
And
lot
you
of
got to
work.
do it in the right order.
I mean,
you
you technically don't, but I mean,
Oh,
you got to do
I thought
those 4 things. That's the most.
Is that
basic.
that's the Muslim version of the Catholic spectacles,
No.
testicles, wallet, and watch? No.
No.
It's like
it's
a
different.
ritual cleansing.
It's washing. Yeah, it's washing before
Strike
you
2.
pray. It's
Well, I don't
washing
know.
before you do ritual prayers. Yeah.
Okay. So in the Jewish faith, it's called a kippah. In the
skull cap, yes.
Muslim faith, it's called a
Hat.
hat.
Skull cap.
Okay, great, skull cap. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
a little bit
You
cooler.
need a better
actually.
name for him,
Skull
Bean.
cap.
Is it called a skull cap?
I mean, well, not in Arabic, but I mean, this doesn't really have a name. I mean, you could use the Arabic name for
Yeah.
this, but whatever. Topi is Indo-Pacs usually topi or so.
Cap. Cap's
cap,
not bad.
a skull
Cap
cap.
works. And is it because you can't you're not allowed to you can't have something between you and God, or you have to have something between you and God? Like, what's the premise behind it in both faiths? It's got to be similar, right?
Yeah, I think it's just the whole idea of a respectful. The idea of when your head is covered, you're in a state of respect.
So how come when I go
At least-
golfing,
at
I have
least
to take
that's
my
how-
hat off in the clubhouse then? Because they say it's
Well, yeah,
disrespectful
well,
to have your hat on.
That's right. That's
The
right. So then,
Westerners are backwards, Dean.
We
yes,
are. We're fucked.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to start
Yeah, they
doing
don't
now.
like you. They don't like
I
you to
can-
wear the hat into the Legion.
No.
Right.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I'm going to change that. Now, see, this is what information does. It empowers you. Now I'm going to go to a golf course. Someone's going to go, take off your hat. And I'm going to go, dude, it's against my religion.
That's right. Wear the skull cap.
I'm gonna keep the kokanee hat on, sir.
It's the kokanee religion, but it's the religion of pints. Relax. Anyway, enough of that. Great to see you both. Nice to have you. Emergency Act going on. Lochlin made a great point just before we brought you on. Is like, some people just want to move on. I can't get enough though, and I want everybody's opinion. It started 2 days ago. Karima, you were there for the whole thing, so I know you haven't necessarily been keeping up with the preliminary stuff. But we've seen kind of a mishmash of things. Yesterday was kind of the opening statement where Justice Rollo was like, hey, this one time I did something like this about sockeye salmon. And then I started laughing. And then another guy jumps in and he's like, the lawyer for the convoy is like, you didn't see anything bad. Everything was great. Don't worry about it. And then the convoy, the other people, the federal government was like, it was pretty bad. We're going to bring a whole bunch of people through here. We're going to have witnesses, all the other stuff. It was actually pretty funny and super fucking boring, I may add, because I wanted like lights, bells, whistles. If you watch the January 6th insurrection hearing, that's fun. That's sensationalism. No one does a better hearing than the United States of America. Over the last 2 days, they referred to about 300 slides and haven't shown one on television yet. They're like, have a look at slide 2.8. I'm like, where's the slide? Why can't we see the slide? No one can see any slides on this Canadian hearing. It's absolutely boring. But we got some fireworks today. Kind of. This is when we started to see some witnesses and people kind of come forward and like, hey, this is what I experienced as a resident of Ottawa. You had some business people talking about it today. But there's a couple narratives that are running around about this whole thing. And I wanted to be able to kind of talk about it in a vacuum with someone who was there for the duration, Karima, who was there, who was on the ground, who saw it. I mean, it was a world-beating effort that you put together. You changed the way journalism happened in this country. That's how huge it was. And then, of course, we've got your ability to understand what's at play, kind of who the players are, Mubin, because of your connection to, law enforcement, maybe your connection to, counterterrorism and countering extremism. We saw a bunch of extremism there. But what I'm watching over the first couple of days, and maybe you can kind of weigh in on this for me, Mubin, because I know you live tweeted this today. What I watched today was fascinating because it was just an acceleration of more of the same, specifically from the convoy people and the convites. I think they're called, or covites. I can't even remember what they're fucking called. There's so many names for these people. Convites. That's what they're called. Convites. I don't know. I'm not French.
That sounds like something you get between your toes and you pee on it to get rid of it.
Convites.
I got some
yeah.
Convites.
Yeah, I've eaten a lot of salt. I got the convites between my toes.
Somebody please pee on me.
Yeah, because it hurts. But what I saw today was kind of interesting. It's just the acceleration of the original plan that the convoy folks have, which is to try to convince an entire country. What you saw, what you heard, what you experienced, it wasn't that bad. Is that kind of what you got out of it as well today in the last couple of days? Mubin?
Yeah. No, they've been downplaying it for for forever. That's their whole thing, right? That's how gaslighting works too, right? They went, they did, they peed on the streets, they took dumps on the streets, and it was fine. It was okay. Don't worry about it. Blowing the horns incessantly, and then so I caught the beginning of it. I caught the first day as well, where they kind of set up the whole commission and how things were gonna transpire. And then today was, at least I caught the first two witnesses, Delarond and Lee, the two witnesses who came as residents, as private residents, who were experiencing all these things. So it was very Canadian, very legal. I mean, very boring. Mm-hmm. Very professional. I mean, it's I think the commissioner tried to make it very clear that we really don't want this to be an adversarial thing. This is not a trial per se, and so there are some small differences in what they can do and can't do. But I mean, they must know that they are on TV, and it's being publicized widely. So at least it's on widely. I don't know if it's being watched widely. That's a whole different thing. And I think most people are just not watching it. They don't have the time, right? I mean, like, who's got time to sit for 7 hours and to listen to this really, really boring process? So
this guy.
Yeah. Well, I had some hours yesterday, and I had actually a few more hours yesterday than I did today. But it's good. It's good that it's happening, and people are seeing that, in fact, we don't live in a dictatorship, and the Emergencies Act, there's an inquiry and there's hearings, and here we are. Not very dictatorship-y.
And it's also written into the Constitution. If you pull it, if you yank that lever, you have to answer for it.
Yeah, it's not a constitutional piece of law, but it's a statutory provision. And that explains the timeline as well.
It kind of takes a little wind out of the sails of the people that are like, see, they're in trouble for it. Well, they would have had to do this anyway.
Yeah, nobody knows that. They think it's a coup, right? Which is interesting. And back to what you're saying, Karima, what is that statute? Like, why are we here? Because let's clear that up and use this as an opportunity to clear up misinformation, disinformation. No one's on trial here. This is a hearing, and this hearing is mandatory because the Emergencies Act was triggered, right? Can you kind of lean into that a little bit for us?
Yeah. So, forgive me if I'm wrong on any of the dates here, but I believe that this piece of legislation came into effect in 1988, replacing the War Measures Act, and built into the language of the statute is a requirement for Parliament to hold an inquiry in the event that the legislation is invoked, which obviously happened. And the purpose is to look into the circumstances that gave rise to the need if we can call it a need, right? And that's the goal here. Was it necessary? What sort of triggered it? And the idea, I think, is to be forward looking. How do we avoid this in the future? Because it is a serious piece of legislation to invoke. This is the first time it's ever been done. And in addition to that statutory mandate, Cabinet also basically put a series of questions to the commission, a more targeted look at the circumstances giving rise to this.
Yeah, so it's built in, it's baked in, the whole idea that they force this issue and this is a trial. It's not a trial. This isn't a case. This is a hearing to establish fact. And after you establish fact, February the 20th is my understanding is when the report will come out this February the 20th, which is a very short period of time for something of this magnitude. So good for them. They're doing their work. But this is to establish who was wrong or who was right. Why the Emergency Act
sort of.
Was
it's transparency justified? And accountability, right? I think that's the driving impetus here. Transparency as to why was this done, what gave rise to it, what are the circumstances surrounding. So this will hopefully answer some of the questions that people have, and ultimately, a conclusion on what transpired. And again, forward looking, how do we do better?
Lochlin, go ahead.
I have a question for Mobeen. Now,
go ahead. Shoot.
Let's do a macro look at this whole thing and boil it down to, and again, there's a danger in doing this, so I want to be careful how we present this. But overall, taking a look at what happens this year in Ottawa, would you call that terrorism?
I would not call it terrorism, no.
Okay.
No.
Right. Would you call it extremism?
You can call it extremism, sure. Extremism is basically the ideas. Terrorism is violence. There is a violent component to it. Although in the definition of terrorism, there is also the threat of violence. And so you did have threats of violence. So, for example, when that motley crew there of Diagolon commentators, specifically Derek, I forget his last name, when they were talking about, somebody should drive a truck through the walls of the Parliament building. That's a terrorist threat. That's a terrorist threat. Okay. So there's nuance. There's nuance here. Yeah.
Now, in terms of like that terrorist threat, and this is what they're trying to assess, right? There's two narratives that are going around that I watched today, specifically on Twitter because of some of the stuff that was coming back. There's the attempt to discredit, which is one of the narratives, and the other narrative is the attempt to paint anybody who was, as they say, inconvenienced as soft. That's a big one that's going around on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen that, Karima. It's like this. I was watching Zexi Lee, is that her name? A lovely young lady who was part of the class action lawsuit. She was actually the impetus, which started with her to try and get Paul Champ to get everybody to turn the horns off. She was on the stand today. And what I noticed, which was fascinating, was how the lawyer at hand, his name's Brendan Miller, who, by the way, shit his pants today. Kareem, I know you're a lawyer. I'm not. But watching a guy flip through a dollar store notepad and go, hang on just a second. Well, were you born in Meadow Lake? And she's like, no. Do you do government contracts? No. It was this like super poor ass attempt to actually have a gotcha moment. But the gotcha moment is the same as all the convoy and all the propaganda. It's to insert questions of legitimacy, right? It was to ask this person or both of these people, Lalonde and, of course, Zexi Lee, who was on the stand. It was all about discrediting them, their ties to certain people. None of it at any point addressed what they went through, what they dealt with. So to that point, you're on the fucking ground for how long? Were you there for all 3 weeks? You were there for the entire thing, were you not? So how long was that? A month almost?
Almost a month, yeah.
Almost a month. Can you address what you saw in terms of violence, in terms of unsafe, in terms of it being unmanageable?
An occupation.
It was an occupation. But, that's going to be one of the key points. It's going to be discrediting people and discrediting the fact that there was no violence, right? Let me point this out. This is a video This is a Rebel News reporter. Listen, I'm going to keep swiping Rebel News digital stuff all day long because they just keep making themselves look like assholes all the time. But they're doing it to discredit the entire process, discredit people as liars, discredit this woman, Zexi Lee, who went through it with the entire downtown core, which you saw, which you experienced. After she gave her testimony, this is them following out, effectively calling her a liar on behalf of their conservative masters. Let's watch.
Miss, you specifically stated that crimes were happening due to Convoy, yet the crime rate in Ottawa dropped by 90%. Why'd you keep lying about that? Why'd you keep lying about this? Hey, whoa, don't touch me.
Well, you don't put your
touch me.
sword up in your
I
face.
wasn't
You're
in
intimidating. You're intimidating.
For Christ's sake. Miss, why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights?
We're in public. We're allowed asking questions.
I didn't say you're not allowed. She has no
Going to
comment.
continue ignoring your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
What do we? What do we make
If
of that,
somebody
Kramer?
drove into downtown Edmonton right now,
Yeah.
big semi truck, and just
Started
started
honking the horn?
honking the horn, he'd be arrested. He'd get a ticket. He'd get a fine.
Yeah, we know.
Can I just come back to the terrorism question, because here's the definition of terrorism according to the Canadian Criminal Code.
Mm-hmm.
An act committed in whole or in part for a doesn't say violent act. An act committed in whole or in part for a political, religious, or ideological purpose, objective, or cause, with the intention of intimidating the public with regard to its security, including its economic security, or compelling a person, a government, or a domestic or international organization to do or to refrain from doing any act. So
we kind of had some terrorism there.
Do you want to re-answer that question that Locke asked you?
Yeah. So then according to that, it meets the definition.
That this was a terrorist opportunity, a terrorist act perpetrated by many, according to the definition.
According to the definition
of terrorism in Canada, in the criminal code. That's in the criminal code.
Yeah. Activities recognized as criminal within this context include death and bodily harm with the use of violence, endangering a person's life, risks posed to the health and safety of the public, significant property damage, and interference or disruption of essential services, facilities, or systems.
Mm-hmm.
So there's maybe two in there that could maybe, if we're kind of taking a tenuous-ish, because, to answer your question, Dean, like, what did I observe? Lots of things. So there were multiple realities almost at play throughout the month, and different times, different groups of people created different sorts of vibes on the street. I would say probably the most violence that I observed was between convoy participants themselves, and also where counter protesters would show up and there were acts of intimidation that occurred. I didn't personally witness a lot happen between ordinary bystanders and the convoy. That's not to say it didn't happen, just that I didn't observe it. The sort of, if we think beyond violence as physical assault or engagement between people in that way, I will say that between the fumes and the honking, that was a constant assault on people's senses, especially anyone who lived or was working in the downtown core. I will also say that as far as safety goes, the presence of jerry cans, open fires, that to me seemed a little bit unsafe. I'm not a fire inspector, but that's the first time I've seen anything like that in the streets of any Canadian city. And it was very casually done, right? People with wheelbarrows and jerry cans of gasoline and diesel. And, that just on its face, I think, was an unsafe situation. And I really, just going back to the assault on people's senses, the injunction did not put a final end to the honking. It abated it a great deal, but it was a constant theme throughout the occupation, and you had to really, like, it's one of those, you had to be there to understand how bad that was. And same goes for the fumes. So obviously proximity, it depends on where you were situated. But I could see why people who are ordinary residents would feel unsafe going through those areas. There were also things like fireworks being set off, just like really foolishness that is a safety threat.
Mm-hmm.
Why do rednecks love fireworks so much? It's such a trope.
Why is
such
only
a
rednecks
stereotype.
liking fireworks?
Yeah. Oh, do you like them too?
Muslim guy can't like blowing shit up and it not being.
There's a lot there. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, there was just to add to what Karima was saying. There's more stuff that came out in the testimony today. There was, for example, a story about a couple that had to leave the downtown with a police escort. They had a pride flag in their window. Somebody defecated on the back step. This is later that night. A pickup truck with angry people came back and were harassing and yelling at people. So the intimidation factor of residents and others who were there, and we heard this even with the earlier witnesses today about they couldn't even go to walk down the street without some of these people basically haranguing them and harassing them and yelling at them and swearing at them. Telling them, why are you wearing the mask? Why do you have to wear a mask? Going into coffee shops, overwhelming the place, intimidating people who were there. So looking at the totality of everything that was happening, obviously it was not just a regular protest in that sense. Ottawa has seen protests, for how long? I mean, many, many, many protests have taken place in Ottawa. We never had anything like this. And so, we can get around to, the Convoy sympathizers might try to, downplay it and whatever else, but they can't avoid the fact that let's not downplay the role of the MOU, memorandum of understanding, where they basically wanted to replace the government. They did. Tom Marazzo, I think you spoke with him.
Marazzo, yeah.
You had him on your thing. Well, he was keen on sitting with the Senate and the Governor General and this and that. So I think it was more than just, supposedly for mandates. And at the end of it, let me just close with this. What was Trudeau supposed to do with the few thousand people who were there, a minority of, ignorant anti-vaxxers overwhelmingly, should dictate to the government what mandates they should have and not. And Trudeau was supposed to unilaterally end the mandates while other countries like the U.S. continue to have the mandates. It was completely unreasonable. And they're trying to play this, I've seen a couple of other things of well, why didn't Trudeau just go and talk to these people? It's like, yeah, you think these people are there to talk and negotiate in good faith? No. Of course not. So,
but aren't they kind of getting what they wanted now? Like, I was talking to someone about this yesterday.
Should have just waited. Jeez.
Yeah. I know, but aren't they kind of getting what they wanted now? Because legitimately, all these losers that from the convoy and the organizing committee wanted, Karima, all they wanted was to meet with the prime minister, to be viewed as a legitimate movement and to be heard and to have him arrested and to have some people in the Senate and sitting members of parliament get arrested and executed, according to James Botter's hilarious MOU, which they later said, oh, yeah, we didn't mean any of that. That's just James. He's crazy. Don't worry about it. No, fuck, that's why you went. But
they realized when that MOU came out that, wait a second, we can't defend that, right? So just take that off the table. The mandates, it's a seemingly legitimate reason. I mean, and the media went with it and everyone else went with it and legitimized it.
Well, they did, but the legitimacy process was behind the idea that they were going to be able to get rid of the entire government, right? Like, that's why a lot of those people went there. They're like, we're not fucking leaving until you're leaving. Like, didn't you hear, how many times did you hear that in the crowd, Karima? How many signs did you see?
That was an oft-repeated, mantra. There was also, violent rhetoric, right? And I say this not to be dramatic about it, but there was an awful lot of talk about gallows and hanging. And I think that even if it is said in jest or casually, that's not something that should be part of political discussions in an ordinary way. I don't think that I can't condone that. So that was also a component of what was going on, and this happened a couple of months after an election. So it raises questions about democracy and what is legitimate. You could maybe say that not a majority of Canadians voted for Trudeau, and yet he holds power, but that's still the system that we have. With the Ontario election happening, a few months later, and effectively 18% of the population voting back Doug Ford, who was MIA, by the way, for the majority of what was transpiring. So I would love to hear from him on what was going on in his cabinet. But I'm somewhat sympathetic to people criticizing the way that our government functions. But I don't think that the solution to that is taking to the streets in this particular manner, in the ways that it was expressed. Like, it was poorly done, and context is everything. So I that's my take.
Lock.
Yeah.
Well, I've got an interesting perspective on it that has not an interesting. It's been evolving for me, because I think I'm getting some clarity in my own mind about why we had that group of people, right? And it's not as easy as just saying there's just a faction of the population. You just can't tell people what to do. They're not going to respond properly if they're forced to do something that they don't want to do. A lot of times I think this thing was blown up on mask mandates or vaccines or whatever. And if you actually really, really dilute it down to a single element, it was that individual doesn't have the capacity to be told, you need to do this. They can't separate this is the way we have to do things, because there's going to be a group of people that aren't going to like the messaging. So we're going to just mandate you to do these things. But the other thing that keeps coming up for me in these conversations that I try to avoid is that there are a lot of people that did not believe that COVID was, and this is, I think, where they're going with this Emergencies Act, that COVID was as bad as people said it was, and that it needed to be treated the way it was treated by our public officials. And I think that's as we get further away from all of the craziness of this, and we're able to have some more some concrete conversations and rational conversations about it. I think that's the separation here that I'm seeing, especially in Alberta. There's a lot of people that, listen, I got fucking vaccinated because I needed to keep my job. I wore the I'm here, so I'm a little more in tune with what's happening here. I had to wear the mask to go to the liquor store.
By the way.
I had to go to the liquor store to get a 15-pack. They told me to wear a mask. I'm also supposed to wear pants, so I'll wear pants and I'll wear a goddamn mask. The separation between the groups and the extremism is, there's a lot of people that and now that we're out of it, that believe that it was never as big as they said it was. And they refuse to believe that the steps that were taken to control it, which, by the way, worked.
Yeah, they did.
It worked, everyone. Yeah. They refused to believe that it had any impact. And that if they would just let me fucking live my life the way I normally do, this thing would have just blown over anyway.
Can I just interject too? And I want to throw this on the table. Like we're dancing around, whether or not the Emergencies Act was a good idea to be used, and whether or not it was infringing on people's freedoms. We're talking about a group of people who say their freedoms have been destroyed by a tyrannical dictator who don't give a single fuck about the 45,000 dead Canadians over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're kind of having this hearing and this conversation on the back of dead people with and about a group of people who decided to go and destroy people's lives for a month in a city that houses our parliament, that is our nation's capital, shitting in the streets, acting like a bunch of fucking losers, and they were activated to do so as well. Right? Like a lot of this is you talk about not having the cognitive ability to do it. I go back to that old fascist theocratic bullshit that the religious right had jammed into these brains over the past like 4 or 5 years with disinformation, misinformation, which is why it's very important to me that we talk about all the aspects of this, right? Like, this hearing isn't about trying to find someone to blame for this. We know who to blame for this. We know disinformation is to blame for this. We know organizations like Rebel News, True North, they're to fucking blame for this. We know the cognitively delayed and these stupid fucking idiots that don't have the ability to press a button on an elevator to get to the bottom or the top, they're to blame for this. But a lot of these people are just too dumb and too religiously compromised to actually understand that there is a city of peaceful people trying to go about their business who had their lives ruined, and in a lot of cases, hundreds of cases, are in therapy, get triggered by the smell of gasoline, get triggered by a car horn. Like, I don't know how you came back without PTSD, Kareem. I know you were there working, but like you can speak to that. Like the obnoxious ability that these dickheads had to literally destroy lives of a couple 100,000 people, to make people across this country feel like there's lawlessness at foot and we're in trouble, because they were capable of not just shutting down the nation's capital. They shut down the biggest border crossing in the country by using kids as fucking human shields. They also shut down Sarnia. They had armed assholes at Coots in Alberta that were threatening to go on a shooting spree of RCMP officers. You had Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba write these beautiful letters to the Prime Minister to say, fuck, we need help here. Like this one from Alberta, February the 5th. We've got a major problem. We need federal assistance and emergency assistance in removing these assholes from the border. This one came from the Premier of Manitoba at the time. Same thing. We need urgent fucking help. And we're sitting here having this conversation, which is fucking mind-blowing to me, Mubin. Like, it's mind-blowing to me that we're sitting here trying to rehash, and I just kind of tuned into me like 5 seconds ago while I was listening to you guys talk. What the fuck are we talking about here? Like, we're talking about our country being held hostage by the dumbest assholes that we have to offer, that were ginned up on religious theocratic bullshit from Facebook and Fox News and their friends and their churches, and they made a camping trip to the city and held a fucking country hostage. Like, why are we even debating this today?
Well,
yeah,
I think
and
that
this was
it is
supposed to be a
important.
fun Friday show. You fucked that up too. Strike three.
We have to debrief, right? Like, we have to debrief, because even at the time, I think there was a lot of confusion and uncertainty as to what was happening. So this hopefully lays things out. A couple of things. One is that, and I've said this before, people went and attended and participated for different reasons. I think at the root of it always was misinformation, but also a real sense of discontent, and trying to take control, seize control in whatever way. There was probably an element of groupthink to this, and a sense of saviorism. So as much as I think we could disagree that people participating in these protests and events, demonstrations, whatever, across the country were saving anybody, they think they were. And that's, how do we reconcile that? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's all fucked.
You know what I think? I
Look
think
at her face.
I think they actually had an impact on decisions made in the last year. I think we have
How?
I think we were a little too quick to pull some of these mandates. I think the mask thing should have been continued. I think there was a concern by our public officials about the division across the country, and I think they eased up on mandates and made decisions based on the pressure that they were getting from that group. So I think that group actually had an impact on the decisions that were made moving forward.
Mhm.
I truly believe that.
Karima,
I think
you
we're
wanted
in
to
a
make-
situation.
Sorry, Karima wanted to make one more point. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Yeah.
Just that in doing this debrief, what really needs to come out is a better understanding of law enforcement and their role in responding to this, their role in being complicit in parts of this, the extent to which some of the people who got charged may have been induced to commit these errors because they had cops taking selfies with them and allowing the jerry cans to pass through despite the purported prohibition on it, who were reassuring them you guys are doing the right thing, and that was a very real element to this, and I saw it happen. So we can talk about de-escalation tactics and why police behaved in a certain way, but none of that, I think, fundamentally gets to the fact that our law enforcement is compromised.
Yeah, I want to get to that. Is such a fucking great point, because both sides, like if you wanted to look for something to agree on, and if you're involved in that hearing, both sides are taking a very big swipe at the Ottawa Police Service. Both sides.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting
Because
because
it shouldn't have gone as far as it did.
No, the Freedom Court lawyer, like they're standing up there talking about the egregious things that happened to Zexi Lee and this Laron lady. And there was a young lady named Carrier who was part of the BIA. She was like, and then during cross-examination, Freedom Convoy guys and the lawyers are Mubin, we're going, well, tell me more about what the police didn't do while this was going on. Right, which is unbelievable to me in my mind, because that's just an admission of guilt of some kind. Like it just like, oh, so it's the police's fault that they didn't keep track of us. It's the police's fault that they didn't control us or our clients, which I thought was fascinating. But there's a big problem here with our policing, right? In your estimation, you do this for a living.
In Ottawa,
Ottawa,
we should highlight that, because I don't necessarily think that that we should throw all police in under the bus.
No,
because has you do? Okay.
Well,
has
listen,
it not been
not to the same
determined?
extent? Ottawa obviously was a very special case, but I think that police culture is very similar regardless of what city you're in. And if we think about police reactions to the quote unquote freedom protests compared to counter protests, compared to other types of protests, there is a very big toolbox that police have access to. And they also have discretion as to when they utilize whatever tools are at their disposal. And I think that we've seen similar results across the country. And I want to know why that is.
And maybe we'll just pivot to Mubin here real quick, because that's a great point. You and I talked about this privately. But there are people that are probably going to be expecting some reputational damage after this. Ottawa Police Service would be one of them, and members of the Ottawa Police Service. Rumors that certain people donated to this thing, but rumors of donations, who gives a shit? We know what we saw. We saw them escorting these guys. We saw them abate responsibility. We saw them choose to not do their jobs. We chose to. We watched them literally help these guys set up camp and stay in business.
Fucking selfies with them.
Taking selfies. I've even reports of like cops bringing these guys food. Yeah, dude, it's fucking unbelievable. But what are we gonna hear? Like, what are you expecting to come out of that?
Yeah, well, so I would obviously I take the other position. I mean, I understand what the police have to do and how they have to kind of walk these very fine lines. Number one, though, I think is they should have known well in advance. I mean, everybody else knew well in advance. I mean, I'm sure there are dedicated police employees working the intelligence side, who would have been tracking this just as anybody else was tracking it. Certainly, I was tracking it. I don't know how these people drove all the way from BC. Some of them, many of them, of course, were locals from Ontario and wherever else, but how they were even allowed to come there, and the Ottawa police claim that they didn't expect this kind of response. I mean, that's definitely a problem in my view. Some of the other stuff, I don't pick on them as much. Like, for example, taking selfies. I mean, they do that all the time. I mean, there's not really, there's nothing much they can do about that. Or even the escorting them. They wanted to
Mubin, how many times have you been stopped on the streets and the police officers come over and go, "Come on over here, Mubin. Let's do a little selfie."
No, it's not. I mean, I think in that kind of situation where you had all those people, anytime you have crowds like that, a lot of times people do that. They want to take a selfie with the police. They in some ways, it's like, we're not violent. We're not against you per se. We're just going about doing our thing.
Okay.
And the police are kind of like, well, at this stage, it wasn't declared an unlawful protest. So they're like, well, what do we do, right? Like, we can't really stop them from doing it, etc. But once it was declared illegal, Emergencies Act was invoked, and I certainly am on the side of the Emergencies Act was necessary, and it did work. Those same Ottawa cops, I mean, they started dealing with it, right?
So why is everybody blaming them?
They got themselves there.
Well, it's not. I mean, they're not completely innocent, and I'm not gonna throw them all under the proverbial bus. I'm gonna say that there are some things that, I mean, like the selfie taking, or even escorting them. At one point they were driving through the city, and the police were escorting them because they didn't want them to stop and stage up and clash with residents that were there. And by the way, I got to say, I really liked what the residents did. There was one the one little car that just blocked the road and just didn't let some of those trucks through. I think the residents, in forming almost like a vigilante response, did more for their public safety and their peace of mind than the police did. So
my favorite guy was the pot guy.
For like 10 minutes straight. Karima, you were shaking your head. Why? Tell me why.
Two things. One, when we talk about police waving the trucks in, I was there on Wellington Street when police were telling the trucks where to park. So I get that the official narrative is we thought it was just going to be a couple of days and then they were going to go. But I watched them tell the trucks where to park.
To the left.
So to me, that was concerning. And the second thing is when the Emergencies Act was officially invoked, Ottawa police took a backseat, and it was other jurisdictions who appeared to have the most responsibility to do stuff. So I saw Ottawa police
to deal
handing
with
out notices, right? We're going to be coming for you, whatever. Those notices were taken and crumpled and thrown to the ground. Like, there was no respect for Ottawa police, period. And they weren't the ones, in my observation, who really stepped up. It was, the outside jurisdictions. And of course, the unfortunate part of all of this is it then created this sort of the situation where the optics are, look at the heavy-handed response by the state to our innocent protest, and oh my God, there's guns in the street, and look, they're marching on us, and the horses, and blah blah blah, which all happened, right? And I'm not one who likes to see the use of force against citizens, even citizens I disagree with or disrespect. So that, to me, I didn't enjoy that one iota, even though there were sort of celebratory, look, finally they're getting their comeuppance. I don't see that that's a good thing. And I think that it actually provided opportunities for further propaganda. So it sucks that it came to that, but it was successful in pushing everyone out, because once that rolled in, and I remember them kind of advancing and basically, not kettling, but closing off different avenues, and there was this loudspeaker saying, "You got to leave, you got to leave, you got to leave." And finally, as I could tell that, our exit points are diminishing, that's when I left, and I didn't go back after
Smart.
that. So but it was like the Sûreté de Quebec, it was Vancouver police, it was different branches of Toronto police. I didn't see Ottawa on the front lines for that, unless they switched.
I really liked I liked the response, of course. It's not that there were citizens that I disagree with. There are people all the time that I disagree with, and I do believe that what was happening in Ottawa needed to be physically disbanded. And I very much enjoyed the, what are you going to do? Break my window? Smash. Proceed. Well, not smash. He's got a glass breaking tool. And he broke the window. And then it was like the cops that were making little snow barriers. I loved it. I laughed the whole way through. Little snow barriers to maybe trip the cops. And then they were like, "We were with you. I thought you guys were on our side." And then the cops were like, "Nope, boosh, boosh," and then it ended. And the unfortunate reality is that we cannot just let these people go on and do as they're going to do, because they would have never left. They would have stayed there. That's how it would have been. They said
that.
And yeah, that's exactly what they were. That was their
very
intention.
vocal.
Exactly. Yeah. So they needed to
what do you
be.
mean you called the Emergencies Act?
Yeah,
it's almost like we told you we were never going to leave. Yeah. That's exactly what fucking happened.
Sometimes people got to get thrown out of the bar by the scruff of their neck and their jacket. That's just the reality of. So
there.
Well, Karima's very nice. Karima's very nice.
Oh,
Karima,
nice.
even the word Karima means very nice. You know what I mean? Karam, respectful, nice. Yeah, and that's good.
It's not just a matter of being nice, though. It's I don't disagree that the response, it wasn't disproportionate relative to people's absolute defiance to authority. So no one was going of their own volition, and because it had been allowed to fester up to that point, there was a very false sense of security that we're fine where we're at. So I get why it rolled in the way that it did, and it also wasn't guns blazing right at the outset. It was sort of a show of force, right? Like a physical presence and manifestation, and then it came in phases. So, I can't really, I'm also not a logistics expert, so I can't criticize that aspect of it, but it's just really unfortunate to see, because as much as, this being a divisive and polarizing incident, obviously that exacerbated it. So it ended it, but it also fuels future discourse. Like, how often are we hearing about the grandmother trampled by horses, which didn't happen, but when has that stopped?
You can't do anything about that.
But
you can't do anything about that.
Yeah, but I know you can't. But they gave all of those guys ammo, and it made me think that the whole goal here was to get the EA enacted. Like that was my thinking.
You do nothing. You do nothing. It gives them ammo. You do something. It gives them ammo. Yeah. These are people. These are the worst of people. I think who there's no placating them. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing, and so
that's why the conversation is pointless.
At no point, though,
right?
did they actually cut off the fuel supply or the food supply? Like that. There's Parliament. Mistake. There's a river behind Parliament. There are a couple of streets heading directly to this one street where all these trucks are parked. Right, so you have a zone, fine, but like the fuel never stopped and the food never stopped. So why is everyone just able to mosey around? Like you could
totally agree.
I don't get it.
They put one, they put it on backs, strapped them to kids.
Yeah.
The orange fuel cans, right?
Yeah.
There were 2 kids, but like that's still a lot.
Just the idea, right? Like
that's a lot of kids,
guys. They only
they were
jerry
empty
cans
too,
with gas to 2 children.
I don't know if they were full.
I'm sure they were empty. It was just to troll everybody into aggravate.
Still messed up though.
Yeah,
I think you brought up an excellent point, Karima. This was allowed to fester.
She's a lawyer.
And if you make the analogy to a wound, if you don't deal with the wound properly, it's going to get infected, it's going to fester, it's going to cause a problem. This whole thing should have been dealt with at the beginning better than it was, and it wasn't, and it just festered, because I'm pretty sure that the number of people at the front end of this wasn't what we ended up with at the end of 3 weeks in February.
No.
It got coverage. We all ended up we all got wound up about it on this podcast. Everyone in the country is talking about it. It's like it's dominating content everywhere.
Not just this
worldwide
country,
news.
yeah. And in the U.S., this is another
flocked
nexus
to it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
This is another nexus, the MAGA nexus. Trump Jr., all these individuals were very involved in amplifying, aggravating. They tried to replicate their slow roll through DC. That kind of didn't work. At least the police stopped them while they were on the road. And I think it does come back to what we were asking here, is that how that many number of trucks were even able to get into Ottawa on Wellington without Ottawa police and OPP stopping them and preventing them. That's something that they definitely have to answer for.
Yeah.
Good, you're good.
Yeah. Can I ask you something too? It's along the same lines, but it's like looking into your political extremist crystal ball. What are we going to hear that we don't already know that might shock us? Like, one of the things that I'm waiting for in this, there's some big stuff, because
Really?
Yeah, I've watched certain conservative politicians. I won't say who, Pierre Poilievre, and his group, but I won't say exactly who, all of his cabinet members, who helped start this with like fake pictures of empty shelves, fake trucker talk, all the shit. I mean, we know that he went after that group, that crowd, this culture, and he is what he is right now because he decided that he was going to super serve a demographic full of theocratic rednecks and assholes that took over our nation's capital, that willingly hurt groups of people, that don't give a fuck about human life, which is clear because none of them wanted to get vaccinated, wear a mask, and called it tyrannical and a dictatorship. And they said their medical freedoms were being destroyed, which is fucking bizarre. But
didn't
whatever.
represent truckers, but even the narrative was it's a trucker thing, right? Because they had a bunch of trucks there. I mean, the trucking association, disavowed the protests.
Yeah, they're like, we don't really we're working. They're not truckers; they're just assholes.
They had the Convoy hijacked everything. They hijacked everything. That's what it was. It was a hijacking of the city of Ottawa.
Yeah, but tell me about this.
They co-opted a bunch of other narratives too, right? Which ended up.
Yeah.
That's when other groups started to move in and
you just had to hate Trudeau. That had just to be the one thing that you had for yourself. You just had to fucking hate the guy, and you had to be conservative, or you just fucking hate the guy. That's pretty much. Or you wanted to see some people get hung on Parliament Hill. Maybe that was.
I remember Karima talking about the confusion that she had about what the messaging was, and that sort of speaks to the lack of cohesiveness of this group as well, because there was also a lot of people there that thought, you know what, hey, I'm not working. I just got CERB. I got some time on my hands. It looks like a fucking party.
That's what it was. Yeah,
it's the same.
A lot of those people. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is like, who's involved in this whose name, like Candice Bergen, Pierre Poilievre, Melissa Lansmanoff. Yes, that's not her last name. I know. But are we going to start? Is the government going to use this as an opportunity to kind of connect some dots here, or no?
Nope. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know what.
I don't think so either.
They're very careful not to make this a partisan thing. It's very different from the January 6th thing, which was very clearly, even though in the case of the convoy, it was, very obviously supported and endorsed, not just endorsed, but even
started
helped along by conservatives, by conservative leaders, right? Candice Bergen having dinner with some of the organizers, telling them don't tell them to go home, make this the Trudeau's problem.
Yep.
I mean, it was a political thing. It was supported and facilitated in a number of cases by conservative politicians, but I don't think that's going to be a focal point of the hearings themselves.
Sort of feels weird.
They're going to want to go through the motions. I think Dean, sorry to interrupt. I think they're going to go through the motions. They're going to get because it's part of the process, and then they're just going to all right, okay, we did it. We did our due diligence. The process is through. This all was a big mistake. Now, please, let's go on with our lives. And what have we learned?
No. The end result, whether the commissioner declares that it was, legitimate or not, that's what's going to trigger the next phase of narratives, of partisan narratives. Because if it's shown that Trudeau, it wasn't necessary, well, then Trudeau overreached. If it shows that it was necessary, well, it shows that the Conservatives were basically siding with a national security threat. So, that'll be the next round of partisan.
And then there'll be
You
another
think
big
the
fight
language is
after
going to
that.
be that definitive on this, Mobeen? They're going to say or
it was either
'cause
justified or it was not, and then everybody else. So the commission will say whether it's justified or not, and everybody else will then, take it from there.
decide
To
how to
basically
handle
say,
it. Yeah.
to say, well, look, it was justified. Therefore, those of you who were justified or were supporting it, you were effectively supporting a national security threat to Canada.
So, Karima, let's take out the horses and the heavy-handedness, which I actually enjoyed. I'm with Mubin on that one, but because I hang out with you enough, I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying too. You're just way nicer than all of us. But I was a big fan of the horses. I was a huge fan of the tack hammers. Loved the snowmen that they built to hold the line to. I thought that was great. And they just marched over it. They're like, what do we do? This is a line. He's like, get a snow shovel, man. Just fucking move it all. And they're like,
come on, everybody.
Come on,
get the snow. It was so funny watching that. I was like, what are they doing with the snow? What do they think they're going to build with the snow?
They're going to stop.
Is there going to be a snowball fight? Like, that would have been
know.
cool. That would have been better.
But like, do you think, in your estimation, because you are more humanistic than all three of us on this panel? Sorry, you just are. You're more kind. You're more interested in the old adage from the movie Semi-Pro, Will Smith, basketball, Flint Tropics. I don't know if you watched
green.
It. Everybody loved everybody.
So I don't want to be
that's how
included
you
in
are.
this.
No, you're not going to vote green.
I'm
you
with
know you
Karima.
But do you think the Emergencies Act, like when you were there, do you think it needed to be used? Don't answer too quick.
Ottawa couldn't do it by themselves.
Yeah, I don't see how after probably the first week and a half, 2 weeks, especially if it's accurate that towing companies refused to tow the vehicles, right? So to the extent that the Emergencies Act was used to basically make use of private companies, right? And say, you will do this. And when that actually happened, I recall that, the labels on those towing trucks were covered. So what would, the decals that would identify the company, not visible. So I think that, to me, that was a necessary component of ending this, the trucks being removed. And I don't see how that would have happened without the Emergencies Act. I also note that it was, invoked for a fairly short period of time. So it wasn't overly drawn out. And frankly, we had a missing premier. So all things combined, Trudeau was put in a very awkward position and responded accordingly using the tools at his disposal. And obviously Parliament, allowed that to happen. So I think bottom line, yes, it will be justified. I could be wrong, but that's my take from being on the ground.
Well, my legal opinion, like with yours, you and I compare legal opinions all the time, right? Because I'm not a lawyer, so I'm like, hey, everybody on Twitter is a lawyer, but Kareem is a real lawyer. My opinion is like, fucking, what else was there? Like, no else to do it. But here's the other thing.
There was my idea.
It was Lochlin's idea. But here's the other thing.
No, there was my idea, and it would have worked.
To use the Emergencies Act?
If he would have just stepped out on the steps and went,
here we go.
Get off my fucking lawn.
That wouldn't work.
I'm telling you, it would have worked.
Okay, so did you guys know? I found this out today, and I tweeted about it, and it's a viral tweet, and it's a really simple tweet. Did you guys know that Doug Ford in the province of Ontario refused to take part in this?
Well, I think what you were saying earlier kind of begged the question of, was the inaction deliberate to force Trudeau to do this? And then now that he's forced to do it, jump on that and amplify it and look how bad Trudeau is.
Well,
and one of the reasons why do you think he was not there?
Snowmobiling?
He probably told, I think, that, hey, like, let it play out. It's against Trudeau. let it become
You wanna be Prime Minister.
let it become, the mess that it's going to be, right? And then we're going to use that to say, yeah, look how bad Trudeau is. And this is exactly what the Conservatives did, right? They'd use the convoy to amplify, and you can see it even now, like National Post. Like, I had to unfollow. I was just sickened by the garbage that they put out, basically just justifying the convoy. And so you see how they're feeding off of it, right? They created it, or they facilitated it, supported it. Now they're feeding off of it. Now the hearings are happening. They don't like it because people are going to realize the bad stuff was going on.
And nobody did shit.
And watch, at the end of it, you'll see, like I said, the response. When if they declare that it was justified, you'll see.
Yeah, but hold it. But this is happening in Ontario. This happened in Ontario. And the first guy to trigger an Emergency Act response was the premier of this province because of the border blockade. Like, that is a fact. The first person to use the emergency response in the Ontario Emergencies Act was Doug Ford. He did it first. And he cleared the blockade after not hearing from him for like 2 fucking weeks. And President Biden had to call him and go, open up the fucking border so my trucks can get through and we can get our shit. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. And they did. Doug Ford did. Now, because this happened in his jurisdiction, because this happened in his province, because the OPP and several other Ontario provincial police services and local services had to be enacted, he had to tell them to go to Ottawa. He had to tell them to go there for this. That was part of this, right? Now, I find it unfucking believable that the government of Ontario, in their criminal fucking history, has decided they just don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, you got a country and a province that's going, can you explain this to us? Can we kind of get to the bottom of it? Because that was really fucking weird. And the guy who is in charge of it, the guy who didn't say anything, the guy who runs this province, who is the guy everybody wants to hear from, because if not for him, that Emergency Act wouldn't have been done, and we might not fucking be here. This might be a totally different story. How the fuck is it possible that Doug Ford is not contributing to figuring out for all the people in this country, specifically in this province, and specifically for the people of Ottawa, how is it possible that he's just taking a flyer? Can anybody explain that to me, other than not wanting to expose himself to more legal guilt, not wanting to get involved in this because he knows he's in trouble? Guys like Dean French and a bunch of his douchebag buddies that help this thing along. And I know that. Mubin, and you know that too, right?
Yep.
Right?
All true.
So how is this possible?
It's their people, right? It's their people, and they didn't want to interfere with it. I think he reluctantly declared this emergency, and then he was nowhere to be seen.
But how can he not be there now?
He didn't want to be involved. He didn't want to.
I don't know why he hasn't been subpoenaed. I don't know enough about the process of inviting or having witnesses testify. But to me, it's just shocking. And okay, so we added to the list of undemocratic, lack of transparency things that Doug Ford does, and it's a very long list. So
there's probably a green room with donuts. Like, he would destroy that green room. Like, there's no fucking way they want him around there. Like, he's gonna eat all the crullers.
But dude, this is I know. Listen, I get it. He's a fat fuck. He's a piece of shit. He's an asshole. All that stuff. All that stuff aside, we're talking about the biggest threat to national security in Canada's history that he helped preside over, and he doesn't want to talk about it in a national hearing that's been televised, that's gripped the country, and it happened in his province, in his city.
Because it's made to be Trudeau's problem. That was the strategy. Make it Trudeau's problem. That's how I see it.
Karima, why are you shaking?
Well, I just, it's so shocking to me. And I guess it's because he wouldn't be able to have a notebook in front of him. I don't know. I don't know. How do you become the premier and then just abdicate responsibility for everything? I could do that job. I could do nothing. Very well. In fact, better than him.
I did not know that the Emergency Act, if it was called by the federal leader, that the provinces had to uphold it. Is that true? Because that would be an indication that Ford would need to be part of these hearings.
There was a separate emergency, like state of emergency invoked by the province maybe a
Okay.
week or so prior to the Emergencies Act. And
So the federal one that was imposed
A
was
week
Justin's.
after Dougie did it. Yeah.
that came second.
Oh,
So first,
okay.
Doug Ford
thought-
implemented a provincial state of emergency, and then Randy Hillier had a pancake breakfast, and then the Emergencies Act was invoked.
yeah.
Seriously. And he's decided in his infinite wisdom that he doesn't have to be accountable for any of it. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, the federal government is sitting there for the next 6 weeks talking about this. Like, if you wanted to know who's at fault here, if you want to know who drove the fucking convoy bus, I would seriously take a hard look at guys like Corey Tenike. I would take a hard look at guys like Dean French. I'd take a fucking hard look at a guy like Doug Ford. And every single piece of shit that keeps that fucking mutant in power. Because all we ask for as taxpayers and voters and citizens of this country is just a little bit of truth. That guy hides from it every chance he gets because he's a piece of shit. Karima, you had a thought on Doug Ford. Sorry, I'm just name calling. I apologize.
No, that's just on the subject of Ford and the Ford family. Friendly reminder that Ford's daughter was giving instructions to her followers on how to basically bog down Ottawa police and continue to participate in the convoy after her mother had declared the provincial state of emergency. So maybe that's a question that would have been put to him. I don't know. But when we're talking complicity, and yes, we can't hold him accountable for her views and blah, 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 but it raises serious issues and questions about conflicts of interest. And again, she was actively encouraging people to flout the law and to bog police down in paperwork with the idea that they won't be able to handle it and you'll get off scot-free.
Back to the fact that it's a hearing, right? In the States, with the January 6th committee hearings, there are people that have chosen to not, that should be speaking at these things. They were not forced to and had the choice to say, so do you think maybe old Dougie was asked, hey, listen, we'd like you to come in and make a comment about your involvement, and he went, yeah, I'm not fucking touching that. Thank you, though. Unless
How
this
is
is
this
forced
optional?
upon me,
How-
I'm going to
how
sit
is
on
this
the
optional?
sideline.
How is it optional for a public servant to participate in something
Because it's
where
not,
his
because it's a
province is
hearing?
intimately involved? How is it optional? It's stupid.
Yeah, no,
It's in his
I get that,
province.
but maybe because it's hearings and it's not actually a criminal proceeding.
You don't have to be
maybe
part
he
of
does
these.
have a choice.
Oh, he does. He absolutely has a choice. But
Yeah, I don't think
everybody
that or
has
summons or whatever.
no. Everybody has a choice, but the fact that he's chosen to fuck off and not have anything to do with it, and not be accountable, and not talk about it, or not give us some kind of idea of what happened, just to me speaks to his fucking guilt, Mubin. Like, it just speaks to the fact that he doesn't want anybody looking under the covers to see what he's got under there.
Yeah, because they're that's where a lot of the blame lies. Is I'm sorry to, again, I don't like to be partisan, you know that, but how can I ignore the fact that the conservatives were behind it all? They supported it. They were, like I said, I mean, it should have told us
Fist
when
pumps.
Candace Bergen is wearing, Trump army hat, right?
Mhm.
And Eric Trump, Trump Jr. and they're all, I mean, I'm watching all this stuff online. There's the crisscrossing between, Republican politicians even saying that we're targeting Canada for this. There was I don't know if some people were tracking it, but how they were like trying to assemble previous law enforcement officers to do like investigations and analysis and whatever else. And I was like, so there's a huge overlap with that, the destabilizing that the MAGA community are doing in the US against Biden, and the crossover with MAGA Canadians who are trying to do that with Trudeau. I mean, I said this before as well, or at least on some tweets, that F Trudeau flag, it's just a reprint of the F Biden flag that they're flying down in the US. So I mean, they're all involved. They're all involved, and they're responsible, and that's why we are where we are today. So, just trying to be matter of factly about it. Like I don't care about the politics. I just I have no time for it. But that's the obvious. That's what's obvious.
That's
here.
a good point.
Yeah, no, it is a great point, and we kind of forget about it because we're busy looking at people that have, abated responsibility. We've been busy kind of poking holes at, police service. What's the problem there? We're talking about whether or not this whole thing was violent, whether or not this whole thing was justified. But I mean, this is 100% driven from bad sources, dark people, dark money. This is driven a lot from out west. This is driven a lot from the United States with Junior and Flynn and that whole group, Bannon, Breitbart. I mean, they did the same thing in Denmark. If you remember, they did the same thing in Holland. They did the same thing all around the world. They found some kind of excuse to go and take trucks, tractors, cars, masses of people.
They spoke at rallies.
Yeah, Mike
around
Flynn.
the world.
I know.
Some of these idiots. They telecommed him in.
Yeah.
Like he was on video screens at protests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, like, to your point, you're 100% right. And it's a great thing to remember. But at the same time, I mean, will that come out? Like, are we going to hear any of that shit in the hearings?
Probably not.
Well, doesn't that seem like we should?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a short time period, though. So, like, inquiry can sometimes take years and years, to actually get to the root of it. And this has to be done in under a year. So the scope is naturally limited by that. Just to your point about this happening internationally, it's also happened in Ottawa before to a lesser extent, but with the United We Roll protest back in 2019, yes. And we had Andrew Scheer. We're with you guys. So, this is an extension of that. Some of the same participants. They built on the idea a little bit. But it's nothing new and unquestionably partisan.
And you can kind of see how in, like, especially media coverage, mainstream media coverage, which Canadian media failed. I love that hashtag. So true. They're making it like this convoy protest was just about mandates. It's its own thing that stands by itself, and that's what it's about. And it's not, as like Karima mentioned, it started with United We Roll, same mentality, a lot of the same players, platforming them because they were seen to be anti-Trudeau. Right, 2019, Trudeau was still there. It started off as oil and gas interests, but very quickly devolved into globalization or globalism and migration. All right, this is their thing. This
Schwab
is who these people are. Yeah. And just even the convoy organizers, right? We saw their Confederate flags. Some of the organizers with the Confederate flag, placed behind them. In whatever they were. We saw a lot of these people, of course, Pat King and his Great Replacement Theory. So it isn't anything new, and people should stop pretending like it's just something reset. That because
there's so many narratives though.
It's got nothing to do with the mandates. The mandates were just the excuse.
Yeah,
it was just
grocery shelves were just an excuse. Like media was propagating that story. Melissa Lantsman was spreading that story in the lead up, despite the fact that it's a small percentage of truckers who were actually affected by this, who were doing those cross-border routes and also not vaccinated. And most of the truckers I spoke with when I was there, it's a relatively small sample size, but enough that I would need more than two hands to count. And everyone was either retired and just, they had their vehicle and this is what I'm doing with my spare time, or they are part-time truckers. It's not their full-time gainful employment. I didn't meet anyone who, this is what I do day in, day out, and this is why I'm here. Maybe one person.
There was a couple of truckers that I talked to that were pissed off that their brand, their livelihood was being used as something to promote, because truck drivers are hard fucking workers. And I mean, obviously, you're gonna. It's like anything. You take a segment of the population, and you put them all in a room, there's going to be some guys in there that don't want to wear a mask or don't want to get vaccinated. And but generally speaking, I think that the truckers, at least the ones that I spoke to, were pissed. They were mad that this thing was a trucker convoy and they co-opted that sort of idea, this brand, and that it made it look like they were all like that, because they're not. The real ones, the real truckers were busting their ass because it was the busiest time of their lives, right? They didn't have time to go to Ottawa and take fucking 3 weeks off because they got to feed their families, right?
During a pandemic. Like, that's the whole thing,
Yeah.
which is weird, right? So no truckers, not about mandates. And it must have shocked this woman. Remember April? She thought this whole thing was about getting her Facebook account back. Remember this?
I'm going to be here as long as it takes. As long as these truckers are going to be here, I'm going to be here. Because why? Because I think we should live free like we always have. Kicked off Facebook, blocked, not allowed to post any of this live, nothing else. That's why I'm here. They shouldn't have turned my Facebook off.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm angry.
Yeah, she's angry now. But isn't that the MO of most of the people that were there, Karima? Like, I mean, it's just that they've been inconvenienced in part of their life because they acted like assholes in another part of their life. So they decided they wanted to go down there.
We need a bell.
Isn't that it? Like, isn't that what we're talking about here?
I don't have a lot of space for
Facebook.
That can I don't know, man. Yes, that's surely what motivated some people. I find it harder and harder to kind of
It's all fucked.
It is all fucked, and it is all fucked. Like I don't know. Like, there were real grievances from some people, very poorly articulated, in sort of a cesspool, shoulder to shoulder with awful people. So it is not as simple as that.
Karima is struggling with this because it isn't that simple, because there were things that were a problem. And it's unfortunate that we've been backed into a corner in society where our public officials have to do things the way they did it because of societal pressures, because they know there's a bunch of jackasses out there that won't just follow the rules. Like I said the other day, I wish we lived in a world where a public official could get up and go, all right, we got a sickness. It's tearing through the country and it's killing people. And there's a good chance it's going to find somebody and it's going to kill somebody in your family. Now, we've found a way to actually combat this. Wash your fucking hands, put on a mask, and here's a vaccine. Now, if you don't want to do any of that shit, you're on your own, fucker. And we can't do that. We can't live in that world. And by them forcing us to do these things, we created this environment. And from that, because there's just a certain group of people, you can't fucking tell them what to do. And it's the same group of people before the pandemic that were pissed off about something else. This was just the next thing that they gravitated towards.
Some religious people.
Don't people want to live in that world? I would love to live in that world where our public officials just had the ability to step up and go, listen, do this, do this, do this. If you don't, you might fucking die. Good luck, you dick. Yeah. And then walk away. But no, we can't. Wouldn't that be a fucking beautiful world? I'd love to live in that world. Great fucking Friday show, Dean. Great Friday show. This was supposed to be a fun fucking Friday show. And you got me yelling. Lochlin. You said, come on, we're going to have a fun Friday show.
Lachlan's going to Ottawa. That's it. Fucking Dean.
Karima?
A component of that messaging also needed to be, we don't fully understand what's going on. And so right now, the science is telling us this. That could change as things develop. Please bear with us.
Yeah. And they did say that, Karima, but you can't add any confusion. They didn't say it properly, but So the messaging was brutal, and they boot fucked it from
What
province to
curve?
province.
What curve? What does that mean? What are we talking about exactly? And then, of course, when 2 weeks pass and that doesn't happen, they were lying to us. This is just a trap to entrap us. And like, so of course you're going to feed into anti-authority conspiratorial thinking when they see you as lying to the public. So how mad can we really be that people reacted so poorly to this garbage messaging?
Yeah, I'm mad about it. Actually, I'm kind of not mad. I'm not pleased with the way they acted. But I look back at it now, and I look at these people. To what Lachlan's point, by the way, this is a fun fucking Friday. You might not
It's
be
not
having
a
fun, but
fun
I'm
Friday
having a
show. My
fucking
wife
blast.
just came downstairs and told me I can't do that anymore because we have somebody coming over to the house. That's what I was just dealing with.
Yeah, well, it is good. Lochlin, it's enough from you today. You can't yell and scream like that. You sound like you're crazy. But when we kind of bat this around and we look at the fact that the government didn't know what they're doing and all those things, and the mandates, is still not about that. Like, I still come back to that whole thing, and it's really easy for me to go, oh, this person's upset because they were told something that didn't pan out, and they decided it was a lie, and so they're going to feed into conspiracy theories. What about everybody else that didn't do that, right? Like 85, 95, 98%.
No,
of
we
the
are
country,
controlled.
maybe even more.
We're controlled by the minority. We have been for years.
Oh, totally. But those
The
fucking
minority
losers
controls
did not have
dictates.
the ability, but they did not have the ability to reason. Like, there's something else going on here. It's not just the fact that they're dumb. It's not just the fact they've been kettled by an ideology that sits behind an extremist religion. It's not just the fact they believe everything someone says on Facebook and they think their feed is news. It's not just the fact that Rebel News has decided to print all kinds of bullshit and attach a financial institution to it so you can give them money for their bullshit. It's not just that. It's the idea that these people have the ability to reason. And what I saw in Ottawa meant that they did not. So if you don't have the ability to reason, like, and there are people out there that don't because they're genetically predisposed to it. Maybe they've got special needs, all that stuff. And I'm not saying all those people had special needs, but the quality of individual that I saw down there was upset to the point where they were ready to hang senators, MPs, and prime ministers. That was upset enough to take a dump in the streets. That was upset enough to camp out in minus 20-degree weather, sit in a hot tub, get drunk, high, and act like a fucking tool for 3 weeks and blow on a horn. That is someone that does not have the ability to reason. And there were lots of them there that day, like lots of them. So, like, while we're sitting here going, well, I understand why they're angry, or while we're sitting here going, well, yeah, of course the messaging's bad. What about 4.888 million other people in this country that had the ability to digest it, understand it, and understand that the way you make a difference is when you vote, right? Like, what about those people? Like, we're making excuses for these guys now. Mm-hmm. I don't have an excuse ready for that. I don't have an excuse ready for what I saw that says, oh, yeah, they're just misunderstood. These are people that don't have the ability to reason, that took great pride in hurting people. That's what I saw. I don't think
this conversation is about making excuses for that group. It's about trying to find a way to diplomatically weave through the conversation without stepping on any toes, and also
diplomacy's for losers.
It's fine to step on toes, even, because clearly, that was not a concern held by people participating in that protest. But it I don't know, what's the end goal, right? Like, yeah, most people get it, but this faction of people were sold a more attractive message, and it was all wrapped in the language of freedom, and you're a hero and you're doing the right thing. And they were susceptible to that. And I think in the swaths of folks who were not there, there are sympathizers there. So it's it's not.
We have one running our province right now. Like, the most
discriminated
group she's ever fucked. Oh my God! Shut up.
Well, it just shows you that in society, you're always going to have a percentage that are going to be like this, right? You'll never get rid of crime. You'll never get rid of poverty. There are some things that it's just part of the human condition. And the people that we saw and the people that we're talking about, that's who they are. I mean, it's always been like that. Even if you go back to the Spanish flu, when the Spanish flu was happening in the U.S., You had the same thing. People, anti-masker leagues, people going on and protesting masks, putting holes in their masks. They did this, right? Anti-vaxxers have been around as long as vaccines have been around. This is just unfortunately part of the human condition. And some people, they're just like that. They're just on a lower plane of existence.
Somebody brought up.
Did you hear that? They're on a lower plane of existence. I don't.
Somebody in the comments. Somebody in the comments section brought up the loudest voice, and that's true in a lot of situations, right? Like I employ that all the time, even when I'm wrong. If I just get really loud, sometimes I feel like I've won, right?
Totally works.
Because I'm not a smart man, and it works, right?
Well, dude, we're watching. Have you guys been all the time? Have you been keeping track of the January 6th stuff? Have you seen you've seen the latest, Mubin? Like
crazy. Pelosi with the Slim Jim. Do you see that?
Yeah.
When she's on the phone with Mike Pence.
Yeah.
And she's worried about his whereabouts. And she's like, "Are you okay? I hope you're safe. Don't tell anybody where you are." And then rips into a Slim Jim.
Yeah. But I mean,
crazy.
Dude, that shit compared to this stuff, like if you guys you tell me you're following this shit, you got to be following that shit.
But
that's
I think I mean, what do you think about some of what we saw in Ottawa being partially inspired by what they saw on January 6th?
100%.
Absolutely it was.
Right?
Crema? Yeah.
I think that seems very plausible, yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. There was so many factions. There was so many factions from we've talked about it. And again, Karima, that was part of her frustration. See the struggle on her face to try to explain what she saw. She was there. She was on boots on ground for 3 weeks. She's one of the only people in Canada that was there to witness it. 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks. She was there, and she has a hard time explaining what the hell happened and why. And because it was a clusterfuck of a whole bunch of different things, right? And
right. You had people from Quebec who were bored and wanted to party out on the streets. Yeah. You had other people from Quebec who were like, fuck the government, let's build a little chalet.
Does every French person say that? Soup. Does every French person go, fuck the government?
I mean, I don't blame them, right? Yeah. And then you have sort of people who are bored in Ontario and see these influencers coming to Ottawa, and I'm going to go too. And then you have, the anti-vax hippie who's like, yeah, peace, love, freedom. Like, I'm into this, right? And then you have the Confederate flag holder. And then you have, it was just such a hodgepodge, total mess. And that's because this movement is an umbrella that will accept literally anyone, anything under the sun, which makes you feel welcome. But that's all temporary, and everyone is expendable. And this whole thing makes me sad.
Yeah.
They had community.
All praise Queen Didola.
Yeah, we hit the queen. The queen showed up and was burning flags and then was fighting with other protesters who were like, you can't burn the flag, that's disrespectful. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're holding the flag upside down and it has writing on it. What was going on? There was no cohesion, and I like to make sense of things and had a very hard time, and I still don't know that I have an answer to any of this.
The next time we have one of these things, though, you need to go with a taser. You and your scooter on a taser.
Air spray.
If anybody comes in,
yeah,
I'd love
just
to
tag
see
them on the way by. Boom. Set it to 2. Just give them a little piss jolt. Boom, and they pee a little. Boom on the way by. If there's another one of those,
you want at least a 7. You want at least a 7 on that.
She's not laughing. She doesn't like hurting people. She's looking at us right now, going,
"You
guys are juvenile."
On the ground and shitting.
I'm just waiting for another Law Society complaint where it's like, and then she said she was going to taser us. Just to be clear, I would never taser anyone. Thank you.
No, I know.
Much.
We know. We're putting tasers.
I would. I'd be awful with the taser. I almost tasered my drunk midget buddy.
Just for fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to see if he would.
Yeah, they were playing with the taser, and he wanted to see if how much he could take. Is what he said. He was telling me that
he wouldn't let.
No, he wouldn't let him do it.
Well, the dog. We did put a dog collar on him, and then made him sing a song, karaoke. And when he fucked up the lyrics, we'd shock him. and we had that went to 10, and we put it at 2, and he's like, I don't even feel that. So we got it up to about 8, and when we hit him, he good. The dog collar's got a good jolt on it.
It really
dog
does.
collar
We used to do this
karaoke.
We used to do the dog collar spelling bee where you would get the dog collar and we put it on our, always the intern, right? We'd put it on his neck and then he's like, just start low. Fuck that. I didn't start low. I started at 10. Everybody starts at 10, right? You like, let's take it for a ride first and then we'll back it off. And we gave him like super hard words like vacuum and onomatopoeia. And he's like, are you serious? And he's got like, he had a learning disability too, so he couldn't spell worth shit. So this guy urinated himself, had to be 4 times one morning because he can't spell. Anyway, you might think it's mean. It was all entertainment back in the day. Everybody can relax. Yeah, it is.
It's mean.
It's a little mean.
It's
mean.
we're
not allowed to do that anymore.
I put it on me to make sure that I knew what he was going through. And 10, we didn't hit 10. 8 hurt. 8 hurt like a fucker. Like you literally, you get on your neck,
like a seizure.
And it was a jolt through your. It was like hard to take. Yeah.
Come on, Mubin. You've tried the dog collar before for fun.
Oh, it's
too,
fun.
haven't you?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fun. It's a little fun.
Like on a Friday night.
I want to see if I can do it. Okay, I don't want to do it anymore.
That's
okay,
why
I did
idiots.
it.
Okay,
Men do that all
take
the
it for
time.
leg,
Like if
put
I
it
had
on
a
your
dog
neck.
shock collar,
Put it on your
I would
neck.
invite everybody here over. All of us, we would have a party, and guaranteed, Karima would be just sitting there watching you. All 3 of us go. Okay, let me try. Okay, oh, that's fucking really hurt.
Yeah.
Let me try.
I'll record it all. Don't
That's the problem with us is we do dumb shit like that. Which
Okay, so there we
literally
go.
fries our
I
brains.
think that's the challenge now. The 3 of us are gonna do it. Karima's gonna time who
I'm gonna
stands the
document it.
longest.
I'll
who
live
I'm
stands
not
the
doing
longest.
a fucking spelling bee. I can't spell worth shit. I'll be
I'll just be like, just
I'll be a
shot me,
fried
and,
potato by the end of it.
Yeah, you get a fucking leg up though because you've got like jihadi training, and so you know how to like.
No,
like,
it's because I'm short. I'm closer to the ground, so I can grant. No,
No, is that what?
got
That's not
less.
it.
Ground
less no.
Ground out quicker.
Yeah,
Ground out.
Goes right out your feet there. Anyway, guys, listen, I want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. It's awesome getting different perspectives. It's awesome getting like an educated kind of, counterterrorism perspective because what we saw was what we saw. Like it all fits. You could apply terrorist, extremist, all that stuff and the wealth of experiences you bring. Please follow my friend at Mr. Mubin Sheikh on Twitter. You've been great about this and great to see you again as always, my friend. And want to thank my friend Karima as well. She is a rock star, and she is the nicest person I have ever met in my life. And she's way nicer than me. She's way nicer than Locke. And clearly, she's nicer than Mubin as well. But she's also a legal professional. She's a journalist. If you're looking for any help, sadvocacy.com is where you can get a hold of her. At Karima Rules on Twitter is her Twitter handle as well. Really great to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here before the weekend. I hope you have a great weekend, both of you.
Karima.
Likewise, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Cheers.
Take
Karima and Mubin on a Friday night. That is it for us. You okay, bud? You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
A little hot.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little.
You
I'm
were
testy.
awesome. You were testy today.
I'm a little
I liked
testy.
It.
I'm a little
Yeah, but I liked
testy
it.
lately.
I
am. I've
I
been
like
on
you
the
like
edge, honestly. I'm stressed out. I'm moving. It's a lot of work. I've got a lot on my plate. And
Just get drunk.
I'm getting through it. I'm getting through it.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have a dinner party tonight?
No. There's no.
Okay, just
we're
get
not
hammered.
doing dinner parties.
Just get hammered.
We're fucking. We got We got plans.
Well, you know what to do.
I think.
You know what to do. It's
My
Friday
boss
night.
was telling me the other day because he got in trouble, and he's like, "I got pulled. He's with a new girl, and she had a Thanksgiving gathering, and apparently somebody in the family has chosen not to drink, and fairly new, like still got the shakes and stuff, right? So, and he decided to come to Thanksgiving dinner, so the family is trying to be supportive and not drink around him, right? To make him feel comfortable, right? And my boss was like, fuck that, and got blotto. So got a talking to. And then he's like, she was like, you were the drunkest person at that event. So we had a conversation about it. I'm always the drunkest guy. There's never an event where I'm not the drunkest guy. Family, work.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I'm always the drunkest guy. It's just the flag I wave. So you
was
don't
he
need to
asking
say,
you
"Hey,
for-
Locke, if you got a dinner party, you should get drunk." I'm on that horse. I'm way ahead of you. Like I'm 4 laps ahead of you.
You're already gonna do it. I'm always the drunkest. Was he asking you that because you wanted to know how to handle being told you're the
No,
drunkest
he was just
guy at the
relaying
party?
his Thanksgiving weekend, right? Which
Oh.
turned out to be a gong show. So
Yeah.
I was trying to be supportive.
Do you know what I did this year for Thanksgiving? It's a week after the whole thing. Doesn't even matter. Nothing. Zero. You know what I had for
We had
Thanksgiving
some
dinner?
friends invite us over.
Soup. I had soup. I had
Fuck,
soup
you
for
said you were going to
Thanksgiving
get a
dinner.
turkey and cook a turkey.
Decided not to. Not interested. Too much work. That's why it's good to be me. Like I'm listening to your story about like Thanksgiving dinner and your buddy who's got this new girlfriend and he goes and he's hammered at a party and he's like, people are already don't like him. And I'm like, I have none of those problems today. Not one of them. I did nothing. You know how many years I did everything on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Kids are older. Like it's that empty nester feeling where it's like I might just jerk off and watch football all day long.
Mm-hmm.
No need to not. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing. I did nothing. And I
There
had
is a
people calling me,
certain amount
inviting
of-
me over. They're like, hey, would you like to come over for Thanksgiving? I'm like, no, I really don't. You sure?
There's a
Yeah.
certain amount of community that goes
Can we bring you a plate?
with
No,
it, though.
I don't want a plate. I don't
Right?
want to play. I just want to be left alone. I ordered a pizza the next day, Monday, Thanksgiving Monday, had a pizza. Sunday, soup. And everybody was like, you sure you want to come over for Thanksgiving? You sure I can't bring you a plate of turkey? You sure you don't want any ham? And you know what I was like? I'm good.
You know what you should be grateful for, because it is Thanksgiving and that's part of the whole tradition, is that you have people. It's good that you were able to do what you needed to do, and everyone's celebrating that with you. But it's nice that you have people in your life that are calling and going, come to my place for, do you want a plate? We can get you some turkey. That's good. I like the fact that that's part of the Dean
universe.
I like this Dean thing. I also like what we talked about earlier, which we don't need to talk about. I like that Dean that took advantage of a situation we all knew he could take advantage of.
Yeah.
That's a good Dean, and that's what you're doing here. But there's also an element of, hey, it's good that Dean has people around him that go, hey, what are you doing Sunday?
Well,
you got any place to go? Come.
But when I was doing Thanksgiving dinners, when I, had kids around and, significant other or roommate, I used to call him roommate when I had a roommate and kids like in the house all the time, I would feel sorry for people because I'm a pretty empathetic guy, despite the fact I'm an asshole. I would look around at people that didn't have a place to go to too much almost. Yeah, it's a character flaw. Where I look at people that I work with, they're away from their parents, they're away from. I'm like, hey, why don't you come for Thanksgiving dinner? And sometimes when they'd say no, not often would they, because I'm like, hey, we'll get you drunk and get you up to the house. We always had guests for Thanksgiving, and I remember usually like 3 hours into it, I was uncomfortable and wanted them to leave. Like I'm like, okay, this is nice. You've stayed your hour.
Empathy has its limits.
Yeah, I'm empathetic, but there's time limit on my empathy, right? It's when it runs into my awkwardness, and I'm like, yeah, you got to go. I can't have you here anymore. But when people would say no, I would be like, what the fuck is that guy's problem? What is like? I feel sorry for that guy. He doesn't want to eat turkey. And this year, when I'm turned down, I don't know, 6 people for Thanksgiving dinner, I was like, I don't have a problem at all. I'm really enjoying this. I worked.
Good for you.
I enjoyed it. And now I understand it. So stop inviting people over for Thanksgiving. There's a very good opportunity they've had enough of Thanksgiving. And they're good with ordering a pizza from Domino's. That's all I'm saying.
No, you're wrong. I think you still need to invite people over. I think that's a good character flaw that you have.
Okay, so here's the other thing. Don't invite me then. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's better. Yeah. Because you're good.
Yeah. I'm good.
But you don't want them to have the guilt you have for when they say no. That's your issue. It's on you.
No, but I get the word no now. When someone says, I don't want to come to your house for Thanksgiving, I know why they don't want to do it. It's because they're perfectly happy being on their own. Like they're happy kind of running their show, running their train, doing their thing, watching their shows, maybe some football, maybe order pizza, maybe get a little work done, maybe do some laundry. It's like a free day. I'm like, no, this is a free day. I'm not going to go feel awkward at your house and go, can someone pass the pepper? Like, I'm not interested in doing that. Anyway,
I kind of revel in awkwardness, though.
like
I'm
when
a
you
fan
bring
of
it to people's houses, you mean?
Yeah, I'm the guy that goes to the house and makes everybody uncomfortable, and like secretly enjoys it.
Secretly enjoys watching people's skin crawl. I'm with you kind of a little bit for an empathetic
Hence
guy.
the drunkest guy at every gathering.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, dude. Great to see you.
That was a good one today.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Not
Lochlin
fun.
Cross.
No, that was not fun.
That was fun. I
Next
laughed a
week
lot.
we got to do a fun Friday thing.
Why don't
where
we do a
talk
Friday?
about-
We'll do a one on Monday. We'll do a Friday fun one on Monday.
Okay.
We'll have fun on Monday. We're not going to do anything serious. There's going to be no Emergency Act shit. I just had to break the seal on the Emergency Act stuff because we didn't really do it yesterday. We kind of did it today. So that was it. Yeah. We'll do it on Monday. But great to see you. Lock, have a great weekend. At Lochlin Cross on Twitter.
I'll keep you posted on Monday. I'm still up in the air. Yeah,
all right.
I'll be up in the air for the next week or two. All right.
No problem.
Good to see everybody.
I got you. Talk to you soon. I'm empathetic. We just established that. Yeah. I wonder when they're going to interview April from Facebook at this hearing. Like, when are they going to talk to this chick?
I'm going to be here as long as it takes. As long as these truckers are going to be here, I'm going to be here. Because why? Because I think we should live free like we always have. Kicked off Facebook, blocked, not allowed to post any of this live, nothing else. That's why I'm here. They shouldn't have turned my Facebook off. Now I'm angry.
I'm just going to shoot straight with you. Of all the things that happened during the convoy, that was my greatest takeaway. Legitimately, was April. Because this is all everybody was there for anyway.
I'm going to be here as long as it takes. As long as these truckers are going to be here, I'm going to be here. Because why? Because I think we should live free like we always have. Kicked off Facebook, blocked, not allowed to post any of this live, nothing else. That's why I'm here. They shouldn't have turned my Facebook off. Now I'm angry.
And you know what? I could barely see her in the camo. Do you want to be seen? Why are you on television? You're wearing camo. Canada does not have a division problem. Canada has the perception of a division problem, which certain people would like you to feel. We don't. This is the quality and brain space of the general individual that took part in that convoy.
I'm going to be here as long as it takes. As long as these truckers are going to be here, I'm going to be here. Because why? Because I think we should live free like we always have. Kicked off Facebook, blocked, not allowed to post any of this live, nothing else. That's why I'm here. They shouldn't have turned my Facebook off. Now I'm angry.
I hope she got some toothpaste. You know, when she was there. Those are some jibs. As my dad would say, she can eat an apple through a tennis racket. She could eat an orange through a fence. Those are some teeth. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Great weekend. Thanks to our friends at kivlaw.ca for making this possible. If you're looking for legal defense, these are our guys. I swear to God, if you need someone to protect you, look out for your best legal interest, whether you did something or you didn't do it, well, you just need someone to walk you through it that wants to advocate for you on your behalf. All you have to do is go to kivlaw.ca. I repeat, kivlaw.ca. Robert at kivlaw.ca. We are powered by our friends over at Kivlaw Defense Lawyers, and if you're looking for any help at all, this is your guy. Listen, it's hard to find someone to trust to walk through the process. Robert at Kivlaw, Rob Kivlikin at kivlaw.ca is your fella. Send him an email again, Robert at kivlaw.ca. Hey, listen, looking for Gitch. Want to thank our friends over at Ed's Fine Imports. We'll get to Easy Auto in just a second. Excuse me, edsfineimports.com. Luxury brand of boxer briefs, pouch in the front. You can't miss. Bunch of different colors. These things are Canadian made, and they're made for Canadian packages, if you will. So yes, they're voluminous in the front. That's what the pouch is all about. And you need a place for your guys to go. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter what you've been wearing up to this point. You need a pair of Gitch. Gitch3 is your promo code. edsfineimports.com. And you know what you'll get when you type it in? Gitch3, that's your promo code. Use the term Gitch3 when you check out. A free pair of Gitch from edsfineimports.com. Check them out online today. Sorry. I had a little frog in my throat. Not feeling top drawer today. Hammered on Dayquil, actually, right now. Yeah, it works. Kind of. Anyway, I want to thank our friends over at Easy Auto Financial as well. They made the whole thing possible, along with our friends at Kivlaw.ca and, of course, edsfineimports.com. Easy Auto Financial, great group of people that help you get into a car. They get your financing, and they make sure that you get your financing for free. They don't charge you for it, and then they do all the other stuff that's so hard to do. Filling out forms, trying to hunt down. They'll do everything, absolutely everything, including your financing. It doesn't cost you a dime. You have to check these guys out. Go to easyautofinancial.ca today. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. Thanks to Darren Cunningham. I didn't even know you could donate on the super chat here. I think you could donate on YouTube. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate your donation. Thanks to Ryan. Thanks to Stoned Sea Bitch Witch. She's the best. Ellen, Mel, Elaine, DaCosta, again, great to see you, brother. Big Black Crypto, I don't know who that guy is, but he's the best in the comment section. Leanne, Nell, Mr. Gochius, he's pretty cool. I like him. He made fun of the meth teeth a little earlier on. Listen, if you took part in this, I can't keep up with the chat, but thank you very much. It's always humbling to have everybody here. We've got a bit of a super chat little community here. That's everybody should check it out. You can check it out on YouTube. This is where you'll find us. Dean Blundell Show on YouTube, Dean Blundell TV on Twitch, and of course anywhere you get your fine podcasts as well. Apple, Google, Spotify, etc. You done? Sanka? We're done. Have a wonderful day. Great weekend. Be good to each other. Bye-bye.